Career invention is not an event you prepare for, it's an attitude you maintain. Please welcome to the Global Black Economic Forum stage, Chief Operating Officer of GBEV's Academy for Advancing Excellence, Aaliyah Hawk. Chancellor for Southern University at Baton Rouge, John K. Pierre. CEO and founder, Right Size Consulting, Melly Miller. And managing partner and co-founder, Northview Company, Ryan Smith.
All right, good morning, everyone. First of all, thank you to my panelists for being here. I'm so excited to have this conversation. We know that the data and statistics that we've been hearing about Black women in the workplace especially, it looks like there's about 600,000 people who are Black women who are out of work. We know that there's a comparable number for Black men who are out of the workplace as well. And I think it's always been important to not just have to get ready for a transition, but really to stay ready. My grandfather retired from GM. He worked 42 years at the same job. 42 years. And that does not happen right now. I can't think of any one of my friends who have been at a job longer than maybe 10 or 11 years. And I'm a Gen Xer. So we grew up kind of with that mentality of you get a job, you stay there, you're loyal, et cetera, et cetera. And now we know from all of the shifts in the marketplace that that just doesn't happen as much anymore. So when we were thinking about how to address this issue, we've been addressing it in a couple of ways. We had a job fair that concluded yesterday. We've got a pillar centered around the future of work, but I thought it was really important to get this type of panel together to have a conversation about how do you get ready for transitions and shifts, because we know that they're going to happen, okay? And we've got diverse perspectives up here, which I'm really excited about as well. So Chancellor Pierre, I'm going to start with you first. Tell us about a time, a moment when you didn't see a change coming. What did you learn from watching that change?
Well, thank you for that question. The time was the pandemic. And there's no way I could have imagined that it would happen in the way it did. In fact, I was traveling when it really hit me what was going on. And when I got back to Louisiana, we had to do a whole shift of how we operated in order to continue the institution from an educational standpoint, but also face a new world where the rules of the game had changed. So the pandemic was clearly something I could not foresee.
That's a really good one, and I think all of us were kind of got the proverbial punch in the face with the pandemic, and we were forced to pivot. And I use that expression, if you know the Mike Tyson expression, everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face.
Right.
So I think the pandemic was that proverbial punch in the face, and we really did have to shift and pivot and do something differently. Melly, I'm curious to ask you the same question. Tell us about a moment when you didn't see change coming. I actually want to hear from all of our panelists on that. What did you learn from that experience?
You know, after hearing Chancellor Pierre's response, it occurred to me that I experience a great amount of change almost every day in the financial services industry and business. And I have to stay ready and remain agile for it, because there are so many shifts and financial trends that are unexpected that come out of left field. And our organizations and our leaders need to not just adapt in the moment, but create a plan where they are ready and accepting and not spending a ton of time wiping tears or reacting to it, but rather activating. And one thing in particular, having grown up professionally in the banking and finance industry, I've been laid off 3 times. The one time that I sort of anticipated, I came home and I shared the information with my husband, and when I was done, I was ready to be hugged and supported. I was hoping to be hugged and supported, I should say. I was hoping. And instead, he responded with, "Me too." That was an interesting Friday in our home. while we didn't expect to have that conversation right before dinner, right before paying for a number of things for our teenage sons, we did recognize that our careers aren't guaranteed, our jobs aren't guaranteed, very little is guaranteed. And so we were in a position where I was prepared to launch my own business, and he was prepared to re-enter the job market, but we saw it as an opportunity. And we learned that what the worst that could happen is sometimes isn't the worst.
Absolutely. I want to come back to something that you said in just a moment around, because you two were ready. You sounded like you had a plan B. But before we go there, Ryan, I'd like to get your response from a moment that you didn't see change coming. What did you learn from that moment?
This question is very, very close to my heart. First of all, thank you all for coming out. Thank you, Aaliyah and G-Beth, for giving us this opportunity to be here and share our stories. 2008, when the market crashed and we were in one of the worst recessions in this country, that was the time that I was caught flat-footed. I was working in a job where I was continuously outperforming and growing, and all of a sudden I became a math problem, and they decided to downsize me. What I found during that time was titles stay with companies. Relationships carry on. Your skills, your ability to transfer those to other companies is what continues to go with you. I was grateful that I had the time to learn those skills, but I also figured out that I need to have a plan, because this isn't going to be the last time that something like this may happen. So I'll tell you, 2008 was a great learning experience. It was the beginning of my commercial real estate career, but it also taught me that I need to make sure that I stay ready and build relationships, hone my skills, and sharpen them, so that if there is another rug pulled from out from under me, that I'm prepared for the next move.
Thank you so much for that. You just mentioned the word skills, and I'm going to segue to another question. And Chancellor Pierre, you're in higher education, and you are working with students and people who are at, it's a transformational time in their career. It's when they're making decisions about what careers could look like. Talk to us a little bit about the skills that you would advocate that students and others invest in, just so that they can always have options.
Well, one of the things that we talk about is it doesn't matter what your degree is in, it's the skills that you use each and every day. AI has made skill attainment and skill diversification so very, very important. That's number one. Number two, I think when we talk about skills, we have to talk about the ability to connect with people, the ability to be able to relate to people, so that individuals really develop a very positive attitude about you. And the other thing with respect to skills is being able to communicate. You can know a lot, but if you can't communicate, no one will know that you know a lot, and you can't be effective in what you do.
Yes, yes, and yes. Communication, you know how people say communication rules the nation? It truly does. And Ryan, I want to come to you, because I know that you mentor quite a few younger or more junior brokers, and critical thinking skills is something that I know that you really do a lot to showcase, influence, amplify, et cetera, et cetera. So talk to us a little bit about critical thinking skills and some of the tools that you use to help develop those critical thinking skills.
Some of those aren't ready for TV. I believe that critical thinking is one of the most challenged things for our young people today, simply because everything is at their fingertips, that oftentimes they do not have the fundamentals that much of us from the baby boomer and Gen X group had to go through, because we didn't have everything handed to us. So with my company, I'm training several young brokers at the moment. They're not allowed to use technology for the first 90 days. They can't look up something on the internet. They've got to pick up a phone. They've got to look at AutoCADs. They've got to look at DCAD results. they have to pick up the phone and talk to people. Because back to the Chancellor's original point, communication is critical. But being able to think on your feet. I have instituted several things where I would just literally drop them off in a sector of town that they've never been in. And their job is to come back with 5 pieces of business. And they ask me, well, what should I look for? And I tell them the same thing every time, FIO, figured it out. Figure it out, figure it out. Because I understand that to move forward, there are going to be so many people that are going to lean on AI. They're going to lean on someone else's expertise that they don't develop themselves. Everyone in my company understands this is not a job, this is a career. And there's a difference between the two. A job is in one place at one point in time. It is a lease. A career is your livelihood. It is your life, and that transfers further than anything else. So critical thinking is what's going to differentiate all of us from the next person.
Thank you for that. You mentioned career, and I think sometimes people are just looking for a job, and they're not necessarily looking for a career. And there's this phrase, career ready. So Melly, I want to throw it to you, and I would love for you to address the difference between someone who is career ready and someone who is just employed or just has a job.
I really appreciate that question, Aaliyah. Thank you. A job is surviving. It's bringing in a paycheck. It's meeting a core level of skills that single position, that point in time requires. Whereas career readiness is a longer term investment. You're investing in you. You're taking a chance, not on this one company, not on this one employer, but on you. You're building your expertise, your knowledge, your book of business, whether it's real estate or relationships, like Ryan said, across the board. You're investing not only in subject matter expertise, but how to use it, when to use it, who to use it with, and why it matters. I feel very strongly, so I'm just not gonna tamper the passion. I'm just gonna unleash it. It's what, almost noon? Close enough. I am so frustrated when I meet with or interact with professionals that will tell me what jobs they've held in the past. I'm not interested in what jobs you've held. I'm interested in who you are, what skills and abilities you bring to the table, how you've invested them and applied them to drive impact in different spaces, and how it's going to translate to what you are going to do in this current scenario. So when we talk about being career ready is knowing who you are, what you bring to the table professionally as a human, being able to effectively communicate that and apply it in multiple situations. That's career ready. A job, a role is surviving. It is bringing in a paycheck. A career is thriving and investing and getting paid to live your purpose. There's a difference, and we all have a chance to activate that.
That is beautifully stated. Really, really beautiful. Yes, please clap it up for that.
Thank you.
Chancellor, I'm curious from your perspective, in your capacity, what's Southern doing to help people become more career ready and not to just look for jobs?
Well, one of the things we're doing is we're supplementing a degree program what we call industry-based certifications. So for example, we have a project called LabSet. And during the course of a year, we put students in boot camps. So they'll learn about cybersecurity. They'll learn about coding. They're learning about all kinds of things, what we call IoT, Internet of Things. So they're learning all these things that are necessary. It doesn't matter if they're a liberal arts major, computer science major, a business major. These are the kinds of things that they need to do. So what we look at is this. The degrees are designed to help you think and to give you core knowledge, but the industries in which people are operating in are changing so much. And then the other piece of that is we're helping develop entrepreneurs, because individuals have to be entrepreneurial not only within corporations, but outside of corporations. That's very, very important.
Absolutely. And we have two entrepreneurs on stage, and I can see both of you. I'd love for both of you to kind of tag in on that. What does entrepreneurship mean in the workplace? Because some people are like intrapreneurs, right? Because you have to have that owner's mindset. And other people are entrepreneurs outside. So, Melly, I'll start with you, and then Ryan, I'll follow.
I think all leaders need to find their inner entrepreneur. When we talk about subject matters being promoted into positions of leadership, they are limited if they do not have the entrepreneurial or enterprise level perspective on how to be successful across an organization. I think it's so critical that we all lead to a degree with entrepreneurial thinking and skills. It's one thing to be able to operate a machine or build a division. It's an entirely different topic and area of expertise to understand how that impacts the overarching mission of an organization, how that translates to revenue trends, what type of risk it presents across the organization. All of these factors are so important in effective leadership. And so I genuinely believe and appreciate, Chancellor, what you are executing in your teams, because that is what has been missing. As an executive coach, as a strategic advisor to varying sized financial institutions and nonprofits that shape our communities and our nations, I've found that when I walk into the C-suite and boardrooms, I can tell very quickly if it's full of subject matter experts or folks that truly have entrepreneurial skills or enterprise leadership skills. Without those, there's a lot of coaching and training that needs to be done before we can even begin to have effective conversations and problem-solving conversations. So I believe that that is most critical and one of the things that's missing, and I couldn't encourage entrepreneur thought leadership more. If you do not have a side hustle, go get you one, because it's gonna make you a better leader and a better professional in any industry.
Totally agree with her. For me, when I thought about being an entrepreneur, I went back to my childhood. I saw it. And most of the people in this room, you saw it. If you came from any type of social economic family where you had to make ends meet, you got creative. Your family got creative. You saw it from an uncle, a father, a grandfather, a grandmother, and that's in our DNA. It's always been in our DNA. We called it side hustles for so many years. I remember when I was in college, I was building computers just for a little extra money. I learned the skill from a couple of classmates that I had. And I kept saying, I want to build. I want to build. I want to build. And part of that is I want to create something that lasts longer than I am going to be around. And even with my company now, we started off as just a brokerage firm, but now we've gotten into development. We're doing consulting work throughout the country. We're doing, as well as that, we're doing so many other advisory services with cities, finding those partnerships. So one thing that I would encourage anyone is to utilize your skills and figure out other ways that you can use them in other capacities. Another word that people need to understand too, when it comes to entrepreneurship, you can be a solopreneur, but you can also be in a partnership with someone else who has skills that also marry yours, but they also cover up your weaknesses. And finding those relationships will allow you to go further with your entrepreneurship journeys, and you're not in it alone.
It's really good. Thank you for that. I want to, before we get into staying ready, what does it look like? Because I think it's important that we give tangible guidelines, you know, something tangible for people to take, with tangible takeaways. But before I ask that question, I think a lot of times people get caught flat-footed. So COVID was a time that we were just all flat-footed. We did not know that that was going to happen, and many people were not prepared. And the purpose of this panel is for us to really change our mindset so that we're always prepared for change, for shifts, for something that's likely to happen. But a lot of times people don't want to do that work. They're very capable, but they wait for the crisis instead of thinking about what's next. So Melly, I'd love for you to jump in, and then Chancellor, I'll come to you, but why do you think people wait before they start thinking about what's next?
I can only speak directly for myself and for those that I've partnered with in the past, I think fear of change, the discomfort of change, there's that saying that you're inspired to do something differently when the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of change. And pick your pain. Your pain might be not being accepted, respected, perhaps discriminated against at work. I repeat, I've been in banking and finance for over 30 years. That pain every day was pretty tremendous. I'm gonna be really honest, the industry wasn't good to me. But guess what? I wasn't in the industry for them to be good to me. I was playing the long game. I was in the industry so that I could be good to you, to my people, and do it better. And I had to learn. So I knew why I was there. And when I engage and coach others, I recognize that sometimes money is the motivator. Maybe the pain is my lifestyle is not, the needs of my lifestyle are not being met by this salary. Maybe it's the schedule. When we look at choosing something new or different, that pain is uniquely yours. And in order to identify what that pain is and what those triggers are that would encourage you to change or to be ready, I would encourage you to truly think about what you care about more than anything else, what you value, what matters to you. COVID taught us a lot. It taught us that we value our health and our loved ones. It told us we value sweatpants a lot. Ooh, I like a good pair of sweatpants with a blouse on top. Let me tell you, I value a lot of things, but we were forced to put things in perspective and categorize. And that preference hierarchy, it matters. So I know what matters to me, providing for my children as a single mother. I know what matters to my long-term mission. And when that is not being fulfilled or met with whatever total compensation we're being provided, it's time to make a decision. So if you're uncomfortable and feeling pain, that's your sign.
So just before I go to the chancellor, I want to spend a little bit of time there because people are often in toxic workplaces. I was in a toxic workplace for way too long. I mean, and all the signs were there. And for me, it was the comfort of, well, at least I know who these people are, right? It was the devil I know versus the devil I didn't know, and it kept me in an organization that I was tremendously unhappy. But I was like, well, at least I know what to expect and what to anticipate. So it was like I picked that pain. And looking back, I also had catastrophic thinking because I was like, oh, if I don't have this, then, all these bad things are going to happen. And I think something else that's really important is I don't think that people always bet on themselves. They don't bet on themselves. And for me, I had to make the decision to bet on myself so that I could always have that plan B. And I'm not going to call it a plan B. I could just always be ready. Because readiness for me is not just about if something happens, it's also about having the options to say, I'm ready for something to be different. So Melly, I noticed you picked up your mic, so go ahead, and then I'll come to the chancellor.
I love everything that you said, and Chancellor, I promise I'll keep this short. They know I'm lying, that's why they're laughing right now. I'm gonna try so hard. I love that you said that, and thank you for being so comfortable and sharing that with us. Toxic is real. This idea that we might not know what's on the other side, we have all the tools in the world in 2026 to know what other professional environments are like, because our friends work there, because there are reviews online, because there are networking groups and ways to explore other spaces. So please, please, please don't let fear of the unknown be a greater fear than the fear and the discomfort that comes from staying in a place that does not treat you with respect. Because to be completely honest, that negative energy you're getting in that workplace, people are talking about it. You might not get to show up as your complete self. It might be harming your brand or your reputation. It might be impacting the way that you see and feel about yourself, or even your desire to pursue a particular industry. So don't let those spaces be so damaging that they permanently impact your sense of self and purpose, because that is hard to get back. Absolutely. And that is worth so much more than we can put a price tag on. So when you're afraid, that's pain too. And that's pain that you can solve without changing a job. You just need to pick up the phone, go surf the internet, go to a different networking event, talk to somebody you don't know, or even explore local institutions and find out what type of courses or opportunities to exist that might introduce you to something that is just the right level of different.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I want to go back. The question, just why do people wait for crisis before they start thinking about what's next?
Well, I think most times people get into a comfort level. It's almost like a malaise. And so one of the things that I always think about is this. In higher education, people are slow to change. But circumstances over the last 7 years have forced us to change in so many different ways in order for us to thrive. And if you don't make the changes, you won't be around. But one thing that I will say that is very, very important is that our ancestors understood the power to change and to be flexible, and they had faith that they would succeed no matter what they did.
Come on this Sunday. Stay on that. Let's go.
Because you can't, when I talk about the history of historically black colleges and universities in this country, it was by faith that individuals who could not even be allowed to read or write by law dreamed of a day that their descendants would be able to access higher education. And they put in their blood, sweat, and tears to make sure that it would happen, even if they didn't know the outcomes. And sometimes we can't stop worrying about what the outcome is going to be. We got to engage in the process.
Yes. Give it up for that. Yes, absolutely. Okay, I want to make sure we give, again, some tangible options for folks. So I want to go to this question. What does staying ready actually look like from week to week? What are the small habits that add up? And Ryan, I'll come to you first.
That's a very good question. I practice this on a daily basis, an hourly basis. I never get comfortable with my relationships or my clients. And I do check-ins, number one. I do check-ins with my clients often where I'll just pick up the phone and just say, hey, how are you doing? And they'll say, I'm fine, what do you need? I said, nothing. I was just seeing how you're doing. And they're like, okay, but what do you need? I said, I don't need anything. I'm being a human being and I'm checking on you because I've decided to invest my personal time and my professional time into your well-being. I want this to be a well-rounded relationship. You'd be surprised how many people look at me differently from that perspective, and it allows us to deepen our relationship because I actually see them as a human being, sometimes even a friend. And that's been something that I have an ongoing thing about. I just give calls to people that are clients, former clients, and I make sure that they know that I'm thinking about them and that I'm conscious of their lives, both personally and professionally.
I think in that you really do stay ready because you're always tending to relationships.
Absolutely.
And for people who are in the workplace, I think it's important that we're always tending to our network.
Yes.
So we have in the Academy for Advancing Excellence, we have something called a personal board of directors. And those are people who are going to tell you the truth. They could be a mentor, a coach, a sponsor. And it's important, really want to put a fine point on what you said, Ryan, because it's about tending to those relationships so that you can get ready for opportunities. Melly, I want to come to you. Same question. What does staying ready actually look like week to week? What are the small habits that add up?
I really like what you said, Ryan, because I think it's true. Picking the right partners, picking the partners that value what you value, execute at a level of excellence that you respect and honor, because they will mention your name when you're not in the room, and they will do so with excitement and enthusiasm and accuracy, right? So tending the partners, but picking them right out of the gate. I had to learn that the hard way many times, personally and professionally. Side eye, personally and professionally. I also have a little folder. It's in my personal email. It's called my kudos folder. It's the good job folder, the big up Melly folder. anytime I collect data from a program or an event, or get a compliment or a letter of recommendation, just something where a partner or an organization or even a client, a mentee, has something to say about what I've done or how I've supported them, I save it for myself and I tuck it away in that kudos folder, because there are going to be moments where I need to remember who I am, and I'm not in a position to remind myself, so I might need to call upon something. And so I do look at that during rough times during the week, and I remember to fill that bucket, right? As they come in. It also is an amazing recognition folder when it's time to request a promotion, ask for a raise, update your resume. All those things that you can't remember in the moment, guess what? You have a folder that you put it in. You're welcome.
So we call that an MVP sheet at the Academy. So it's
I
called
like that too.
Measuring Value Proactively. Because part of what's really important is making sure that your value and impact is always documented, and I love that. I used to pull it into a folder until we came up with this MVP so we could show, value, et cetera, et cetera. Chancellor, I'm coming to you. What does staying ready actually look like from week to week? What are the small habits that add up?
Well, for me, it's always being open to innovative ideas. I find myself getting into the habit of taking the time to read so many different things that are outside of the world that I'm in, so that I can really begin to see how other people are thinking about how we process stuff. And because of that, it allows me to think outside the box. It allows me to connect, meet different folks who are doing some things, or bring ideas that we hadn't thought about before. Because right now, we live in a world where so much data is being generated. And we've got to figure out what that data really means for us. Some of it is relevant, some of it is not relevant. We've got to be able to discern which is good data, what is bad data. And that's the kind of thing that helps us proactively make the right kind of move. Because what we've got to do is then we've got to make a decision about a direction we're going in. You see, you got to make decisions. You can't just sit still. Doing the same thing over and over again is not an option. You got to make decisions.
Very good. Thank you for that. You mentioned something that I want to actually ask a question about. You talked about innovation. And when I think about innovation, it's because someone was curious about someone. Someone wondered about something like, I wonder if this could happen, or I wonder if that could happen. And Melly, I want to throw this to you. What does it mean to give yourself permission to explore a curiosity? And why is that so hard for people to kind of get outside of their normal boxes, if you will?
We're all out here turning a crank on a daily basis. I mean, obviously not today. Welcome to Essence. But I will say that we can get in a rut, in the habit of checking the boxes of the things that we must fulfill on a daily basis, and we do not always leave space for ourselves, and not just the self-care where we're taking a bubble bath or working out, but the type of self-care that invites a safe place to explore, fail forward, foster our curiosity and our ability to create. We watch kids play, but what about us grown folks? Playing is important, and when you forget to laugh and play, we forget to dream. And so one of the courses that I teach, I actually have titled Permission to Dream, because we forget that element of ourselves, and we sometimes rob ourselves of the ability to flex and soar and explore. So I'd ask everybody in here to talk to their friends and their family and their colleagues and spend some time building something or playing a game together. Chess, Monopoly, Play-Doh, I don't care. Do something that's different and outside of the scope of what you're supposed to do or supposed to be. Play a little bit. Give yourself permission to laugh or have fun. And, this is my favorite, ask yourself the most ridiculous questions. Look at a problem at work in a different way. Slow down and ask yourself, well, why do we behave this way? Do we need more signs, or do we need to recognize that we're humans and we're easily distracted and we need something else? Ask ridiculous questions. That would be my recommendation to get you outside of your box. And more than anything, we're tired. Checking every box we can, there's very little energy left, but you do have energy to surf the internet and look at TikTok. So maybe put TikTok aside for 5 minutes and play for a little while. That's my thought.
So I just want to notice something is what I want to notice is that what we're talking about, it's about a mindset shift. So it's about encouraging different parts of our brain to work differently and not just staying in routines. Because when we get into routines, I think a lot of times people mistake a routine for certainty, and it's not the same thing. There's nothing certain. And it's so important, again, that we can have these different mindsets, being curious, being more innovative, tending to networks, et cetera, so that we can be, again, more ready. I want to shift, and I'm also noticing the time. Ryan, I want to throw it to you. We just talked about curiosity, and Chancellor opened this up really nicely, talking about innovation. Melly just talked about different practices, asking yourself different questions, really repositioning how you think about something. I know that you're a big user of artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence, I definitely think it has its way in our lives, or has a big purpose in our lives in a lot of different ways, because it allows me to, save time. It allows me to gather information in a very different way, et cetera. But talk to us a little bit about how you utilize AI to really interrogate different parts of a problem that you may have or a solution that you're seeking.
We're in a time where AI is not going to do anything but get better and more prevalent in our lives. That's just the facts. Unfortunately, we're going to have to understand that. What I've tried to do with my company is utilize it as a thought partner rather than the lead thinker. So I utilize it in a way where I will come to it with a solution, with a problem, and I'd look for a council of solutions that I can then take from that and find the ultimate outcome that is the best for my clients and the company. We started using AI 4 years ago to help us shrink the entire country. From Dallas, Texas, where my company is based, we can now look at the entire United States and see every corner of real estate and what's active due to our integration of AI. That's a really big tool that we've been able to utilize it for. However, it's not the end-all, be-all. I still have a gut, I still have experience, I still have a team of well-qualified, highly skilled people that I rely on more than AI. But when we're looking for another level of confirmation, another level of depth in our knowledge, we will utilize it no different than the encyclopedia, no different than Google after that, and no different than what AI is now. It is a resource, it is a reference, but it is not to replace your own critical thinking.
So that's good. I just want to say thank you for that answer. You mentioned something, and I just have to bring a little bit of levity to the panel, but you don't let your junior brokers use it for how long?
90 days.
90 days,
Yes.
Okay. So after 90 days, like a world opens up to them, essentially. Okay, so I love to hear that because it brings me to, go ahead.
No,
want to
go
say
ahead.
something? Okay. So it brings me to one of our final questions, which is really centered around habits. So you help your brokers build better habits so that they're not dependent on AI. I'm like, hi, dependent on AI. So what's one habit that each of you wish you would have started a little bit earlier?
Well, for me, I think learning about all the creative things that are happening. I never thought of myself as being creative, okay? But I've had to really engage with creative people. And so they bring a different perspective because they're thinking about things, and then you have to say, wow, I hadn't thought about that. So creativity is maybe a attribute that we don't think about because we're so busy doing the work that we don't assess our own creativity.
So one habit to build, assess your own creativity, brings about innovation, curiosity, et cetera, et cetera. Melly, what's one habit you wish you would have started 5 years earlier?
Introducing myself early and often and on repeat. And I don't just mean my name, I mean the way that I think, how I operate, how I can help show up and support, the way that I partner. That piece of my identity and my approach to success invites others to do the same, and it breeds very successful partnerships, creative projects, connections, and an authentic space for folks to lean in and want to partner together. So, yeah, I find every possible way to introduce who I am, not just what I am, which is oftentimes when I enter a room, the first thing they see. So, signature line of an email, all the different platforms, in advance on the agenda, just making sure folks know how I'm showing up.
For me, it was strict time blocking. I would be all over the place early in my career, not really giving a disciplined amount of time towards specific tasks. And things that I wanted to accomplish in a day did not get done. Much of what we talked about this morning is our creative time. And for me, that's at 6 o'clock in the morning when I'm exercising. And if I don't do it then, it's not going to happen. If I don't exercise in the morning, it's not going to happen, because the demands of my job and my career are going to take precedent over everything else throughout the day. So I wish I would have had that skill earlier on. I probably would have had a much bigger platform than I have now.
All right, so I just want to I want to say thank you, first of all, for all that you just gave us. Thank you for really giving us so much wisdom. Your generosity has been fantastic. I just want to make sure I put a fine point, because as a facilitator in me, I have to make sure that there are notes, that people have something to take away with them. So remember, this was all about career reinvention and different skills that we talked about to make sure that you have, so you're not scrambling when change comes. You just mentioned time blocking. So when we are organized, it helps us to stay on point. It helps us to stay focused. Something else that we mentioned early on was really knowing who you are and what it is that you want, your values. I often talk about with my clients dignity and how important it is to maintain our dignity. And I can go on and on about a longer story for another time about what that looks like when we put our dignity, on the table, which I would advise that we never do. Something else that we talked about is really evaluating fear and considering, why am I thinking about the devil I know versus the devil that I don't know? We really have to be thinking about what's possible at all times. The next thing here is tending to our networks, because when we're ready to make a move, we need people in our corner that we can reach out to. So we've got to make sure that we're maintaining those relationships so that when we are ready, we can make that call. Next is making sure that we stay sharp, curiosity, learning. I want to give a big shout out to continuous learning and making sure that you have what you need. We've got EHBCU here represented, so I think it's important that we do more classes if we need them. We do those certifications, because if we have a plan in mind, we need to make sure that we're evaluating what skills we need to get there. So again, the facilitator in me has to give notes and has to say, make sure that these are some of the processes and practices that you're doing. Because when change arrives, whether or not you want it or not, you have to be on solid ground. And we want you to always be ready so you don't have to get ready. So thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming out, and enjoy the rest of your Essence Festival, everybody.
You stood right beside me, yeah, and I won't forget.